Statistics South Africa this morning releases the Income and Expenditure Survey. It paints a picture of just how high the cost of living is and how it's affected the country's poorest and wealthiest households. This survey also provides a picture of the living conditions of families in South Africa. Let's talk more about the importance of this information we're expecting this morning, and business editor Xolani Mbanjwa joins us. Xolani, good morning. My recollection is I think the last time we had this survey released, because it's released in 5 or 10-year increments, was actually 10 years ago. So share with us the information we're expecting and why it is particularly important at this juncture in South Africa's economy.
Good morning, Iman. You are absolutely right. This information is very critical when it comes to knowing how South Africans live, how South African households are also making their income. This is quite important because we've seen the prices of goods and services rising exponentially over the past couple of years since the COVID-19 pandemic in particular, where there was a disruption in a global supply of goods and services, particularly food, is an important price increase. And this information that has been gathered by Statistics South Africa ostensibly tells the country where South Africa is actually finding hardship when it comes to expenditure on food. And in particular, it is to measure the poverty and inequality levels of South African households. So it's going to be an important one because that's why we pay so many taxes and so much tax to the government in order to make sure that the services are rendered, but also to support the most vulnerable in society. It is a glimpse of how really the poorest of the households and those who are child-headed, those who are women-headed households are actually experiencing the hardships of the high cost of living, as we heard from that story earlier on from Nobuhle Nkoma in KZN. The prices have risen hugely in the past 3 years.
Xolani, what we know is, and again, what an important moment this is for South Africa to really understand the people and the challenges that they're facing at this point. Inflation has been eating away at household incomes, particularly the poorest. We know this. What do we know about the rise in the prices of goods and services, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic?
Iman, what we know is that South Africans are digging deeper and deeper into their pockets. And when you look at the average poorest household, they are spending more than 50% of their income just on food. For the wealthier household, middle income and upper income households, we know that they are spending not as much on food, but on transport. And electricity is an issue as well, but transport, electricity and food prices. And that's what we're focusing on this morning, on the food prices. When you look at the rise in the average price of food since 2017, between 2017 and 2014, you will see that there has been a huge increase. If you look at 1 kilogram of rice, which was 18 rand 65 on average in 2017, it's risen by 66% to, when you look at them, 31 rands 10 cents. And these are basic food items that are needed. White bread was 13 rand 41 cents in 2017. And now, last year's numbers, 18 rand 53. And you go on and on. White sugar, 2.5 kilograms. You'll see in 2017 it was 37 rand 18 cents, and last year it was a 66% increase as well, to 62 rands and 1 cent. Of all of these, potatoes and tomatoes and eggs have risen sharply, and that just tells you that these are basic food items that should actually inform how actually the the poorest households are actually living and the highest cost of living. These are not luxurious items. These are basic items when it comes to what everybody needs. But particularly, it's important to note that when it comes to women-headed households, they are actually the lowest. They have the lowest income, and they spend half of that income on food.
You know, when you say, you know, people spend half their income on food, then you think about how much money they also spend on transport as well. And you put those two things together and you think, well, you know, how do you live in the middle? And again, as you say, that graphic really eye-opening. Potatoes up 81% if we round that off. Eggs 83%. We're talking about staples in a very short space of time since the COVID-19 pandemic and now. So share with us some of the expectations of what we're likely to hear from StatSA this morning, Xolani.
Not a good picture we're expecting from Statistics South Africa as far as the rise in the average cost of living and the incomes as well. Black women who head households are expected to continue to be the lowest earners of all population groups in the country. But this information is quite important for those policymakers in government, local, provincial and national government, in informing them where the greatest needs are. This is why StatSA is there. It is to inform the government structures and all spheres of government where the biggest needs are, where interventions are actually needed, which is where government comes in with the 370 grant, which is where government comes in with other interventions when it comes to the poorest households. Not a good picture that we've had in the past 3 years in terms of inflation and, of course, interest rates, but it is also notable that what we are told this morning could actually lead to the tinkering of the zero-rated food basket. There has been a lot of calls, Iman, for chicken to be included and not to be taxed, which is a basic source of protein in South Africa. And there's been a lobby groups that have been going around making noise to say, add chicken to that basket of goods because we need to lower the prices, in particular for the low-income households.
Xolani Mbanjwa will be back at that important briefing as soon as that event goes live.